Hello students, this is me, Saurabh, English faculty of Mount Literacy School, Jhansi. And today I am going to discuss the chapter The Rat Trap written by Selma Lagerlof. So students, let's begin with the introduction of the author. Selma Ottilia Lovisha Lagerlof 1858 to 1940 was a Swedish author and teacher. She published her first novel, Gustav Berling's saga, at the age of 33. She was the first woman to win the Nobel Prize in Literature, which she was awarded in 1909. So here students, this was about the author. Now let's continue with the summary of the chapter, The Rat Trap. Once upon a time, there was a man who went around selling small rat traps of wire. He made them himself at odd moments from the material he got by begging in the stores or at the big farms. But even so, the business was not especially profitable. So he had to resort to both begging and pretty thievery to keep body and soul together. Even so, his clothes were in rags, his cheeks were sunken, and hunger gleamed in his eyes. No one can imagine how sad and monotonous life can appear to such a vagabond who plods along the road left to his own meditations. But one day, this man had fallen into a line of thought which really seemed to him entertaining. So, here he had naturally been thinking of his rat traps when suddenly he was struck by the idea that the whole world about him, the whole world with its lands and seas, its cities and villages, was nothing but a big rat trap. It had never existed for any other purpose than to set baits for people. Here, students, baits means something which gives you greediness. Okay. It offered riches and joys, shelter and food, heat and clothing, exactly as the rat trap offered cheese and pork. And as soon as anyone let himself be tempted to touch the weight, it closed it on him, and then everything came to an end. The world had, of course, never been very kind to him. So, it gave him unwanted joy to think ill of it in this way. It became a cherished pastime of his during many dreary ploddings to think of people he knew who had let himself be caught in the dangerous snare, and of others who were still circling around the weight. Actually, what happened, students, one dark evening as he was trudging along the road, he caught sight of a little grey cottage by the roadside, and he knocked on the door to ask for shelter at the night. So, what actually happened over there? Nor was he refused. Instead of the sore faces which ordinarily met him, the owner, who was an old man without wife or child, was happy to get someone to talk to in his loneliness. Immediately, he put the porridge pot on the fire and gave him supper. Then he carved off such a big slice from his tobacco roll that it was enough both for the stranger's pipe and his own. So they enjoyed. Finally, he got out an old pack of cards and played MLZS. This is a very important name in the chapter, students, which is known as MLZS. It is a game of cards. With his guest until bedtime, the old man was just as generous with his confidences as with his porridge and tobacco. The guest was informed at once that in his days of prosperity, his host had been a crofter at Ramsjo Ironworks and had worked on the land. Now that he was no longer able to do day labor, it was his cow which supported him. Yes, that Bossy was extraordinary. She could give milk for the creamery every day. And last month, he had received all of 30 kroner in payment. The stranger must have seemed incredulous, for the old man got up and went to the window, took down a leather pouch which hung on a nail in the very window frame, and picked out 3 wrinkled 10 kroners bills. These he held up before the eyes of his guest, nodding knowingly, and then stuffed them back into the pouch. The next day, both men got up in good season. The crofter was in a hurry to milk his cow, and the other man probably thought he should not stay in bed when the head of the house had gotten up. So now, what next? They left the cottage at the same time. The crofter locked the door and put the key in his pocket. The man with the rat trap said goodbye and thank you, and thereupon each went his own way. But half an hour later, the rat trap peddler stood again before the door. He did not try to get in, however. He only went up to the window, smashed a pane stuck in his hand, and got hold of the pouch with the 30 kroner. He took the money and thrust it into his own pocket. Then he hung the leather pouch very carefully back in its place and went away. As he walked along with the money in his pocket, he felt quite pleased with his smartness, because what he had done was a thievery. So now he realized, of course, that at first he dared not continue on the public highway, but must turn off the road into the woods. During the first hours, this caused him no difficulty. Later in the day, it became worse, for it was a big and confusing forest which he had forgotten into. Now he is going to be lost in that forest now. And here, what is going to happen with this man now, and what he is going to feel in this during this situation, that all we are going to see here in the coming para. He tried to be sure to walk in a definite direction, but the paths twisted back and forth so strangely. He walked and walked without coming to the end of the wood, and finally he realized that he had been only walking around in the same part of the forest. All at once, he recalled his thoughts, and that was the most important thought of his life. That was all about the world and the rat trap. Now the name of the chapter is here in front of you. Now his own turn had come. He had let himself be fooled by a bait and had been caught. The whole forest, with its trunks and branches, its thickest and fallen logs, closed in upon him like an impenetrable prison from which he could never escape. It was late in December. Darkness was already descending over the forest, and now he is dying because of hungerness. He don't have anything to eat even over there. So now this increased the danger and increased also his gloom and despair. Finally he saw no way out, and he sank down on the ground, tired to death, thinking that his last moment had come. But just as he laid his head on the ground, he heard a sound, a hard, regular thumping. There was no doubt as to what that was. Again, now this man, peddler, he raised himself. So finally he is going to reach to a place where what is going to happen with him next in the story, that all we will see in the next part. That means the part 2 of this lesson. We will meet again in the next video. Till then, go through the summary of this chapter of part 1, and then we will meet again with the next part in the next video. Thank you so much.